Let's go. Let's get it, GGG. Me mix me a drink for the occasion. Let's get it, GGG. Me mix me a drink for the occasion. Let's go, let's watch this jug. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Yeah. All right. I'm ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, let's go.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers from Grinding Gear Games, and welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of what's coming next for Path of Exile 2. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Sun Priest's Incineration rare finisher effect by following the instructions below. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict.
All right. Hype.
Karui! I have called you here to save our people. To save our way. Over the ages, we have known pain like no other. But we endured. And we became mighty. Now, outsiders dishonor our shores. And we have stood by, doing nothing. Hear my voice, ancestors! Show us your strength! Show us the true way! I understand.
Ooh.
Be still! I open your core!
I hate it. What the hell's that? Oh.
The true Lakura Makoi will rise.
Damn. What? 24. Sport gym overhaul. Okay. Massive skill. Lineage. 25 new get. What? New traces. Oh, it's gonna be fucking badass, y'all. Oh, camera fucked up. No camera. It's all right. Let's go.
Now, as you can see, there's a lot going on, and we have a lot to reveal today. We'll start by going over Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline. But that's not all. There's also 3 new interlude acts to get you to endgame, which means we're removing Cruel difficulty too. After that, we'll be going through the massive changes to characters. I'm super excited to show you how I've overhauled the entire support gem system, added new skills, and yes, there are buffs. Next, we'll go over the Rise of the Abyssal, this season's exclusive league mechanic, and talk about the new rewards, crafting systems, areas, and bosses that it adds.
What's up?
After that, it's on to changes we're making to the endgame. Then it's time to talk about items, crafting, and oh yeah, trade. That's going to be a big one. We'll then go over our new supporter packs and finish up with a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile 2's game directors, myself and Mark, your questions from Twitch chat. And after that, at 4 PM Pacific, patch notes. They're not quite complete, but they should give you some nice details to chew on. We've got a lot to cover today, but first, another announcement. When the Third Edict launches on the 29th, we'll be having a free weekend for Path of Exile 2. That's right, Path of Exile 2 will be free for the first time without requiring an early access key. The free weekend will end on September the 1st, so you'll have plenty of time to give the game a try. Alright, let's get started with Act 4. The story continues from the end of Act 3. Doryani has agreed to help you find an ancient weapon that can be used against corruption, the instrument of the Third Edict. The weapon was broken in ages past, but he believes that the pieces may be found in the Karui archipelago, the home of the Karui tribes. You will need to journey to Kingsmarch, hire a ship, and set sail. When you open the map, you can choose to sail anywhere you like. Act 4 is completely non-linear, and you can visit the islands in any order you choose.
Nice.
Will you visit the pristine beaches of Whakapanu Island? The Karui whisper of a curse that afflicts all who travel there. Perhaps it's related to the weapon you seek.
Come on, Quaddy.
Or maybe you will visit the volcanic shores of the Isle of Kin. The Kin have been more restless recently, mining for sulfite and driven by some dark force. Perhaps you will choose to consult with one of the local Karui tribes. Their ancient wisdom could hold clues to finding the Third Edict. No matter where you choose to go, you will fight dangerous beasts, find fabulous treasures,
Rally Sister.
and battle incredible bosses.
A challenger!
The monkey.
Come, Yama sees your soul!
There are 8 islands to discover, each teeming with its own flora and fauna. Act 4 contains over 100 new monster types, 16 new areas, 12 new bosses, and plenty of other interesting encounters. There's a
Hey,
huge
your
amount to
nipple.
show, but we're not going to spoil too much here. We want to give you a chance to discover it all for yourself. What happens after Act 4? Well, until now you had to repeat the entire campaign again before you could face the endgame. But after adding Act 4, the game is far too long to make you do that. We needed something else to do in between the end of Act 4 and the endgame. So what else could we do? Add 3 new mini-acts, of course, and we're calling them the Interludes. The Interludes are a set of 3 temporary side stories that will be included in the game until Act 5 is released, that will take you to level 65 where the endgame can begin. The first interlude sends you on a journey back to Ogham. Renly has been leading the efforts to rebuild Ogham Village after the defeat of Count Geonor, but there's a new danger afoot. The nearby town of Holton is surrounded by an impenetrable darkness, and each night their corrupted townfolk emerge to raid the local farmlands. You will discover new areas and new bosses. You'll need to find your way through the darkness, uncover the source of corruption,
Soon you will serve our master.
and defeat it.
Yes, I shall dance with their corpse.
And that's just the first interlude. The second interlude will have you return to the Vasteri Desert, where Asala has been given a sacred duty. When the skies align, the gifting of water requires a chosen Sekima to meet with the Selkari, guardians of the sacred water, but they're nowhere to be found. You will need to track down the Selkari, find those responsible for disrupting the gifting, fight even more new bosses, discover the secrets of the ancient ritual, discover new locations, and ultimately help Asala carry out her sacred duty. Now for Interlude 3. As Royal Thaumaturge of the Vaal, Doyani had plans within plans to save his people from the cataclysm perpetuated by Atzeri's lust for power. One such plan involved sealing a group of willing Vaal deep in a great mountain vault near the home of the Asmeri, deep enough to survive the cataclysm. Even though thousands of years have passed, he believes that their descendants may still live, and may be key to defeating the beast. The journey up the mountain will be dangerous. New foes stand in your way. And the further up the mountain you venture, the colder it will become. Explore caves of ice and enter the vault itself. Who can say what you will find within? The interludes are 6 to 7 areas each and generally include 4 boss fights as well. When you put that together with Act 4, that adds up to 35 new areas in the campaign and 24 new bosses.
That's a lot of content.
It's worth making clear that the interludes are temporary. When Act 5 and 6 are added, the interludes will be going away. These are side stories after all, but don't worry, the bosses and areas that make up the interlude are all part of the endgame. We're not just going to throw them away. And with that, we don't need cruel difficulty anymore. We do know that it was a pretty big chore to have to play through the campaign multiple times on each character, and this was a huge reason that the campaign could feel like a bit of a slog when playing through again. But we do also have another new feature to address that particular concern as well. So let's talk about sprinting. In 030, when you hold down the dodge roll button, your character will go into a sprint after they finish the roll. This is available on all character classes, and there's no limitation on how long you can sprint for. The primary purpose of this feature is to make navigating areas faster when out of combat. Because of that, if you do take a hit while sprinting, you'll fall to the ground. The best idea is to use a skill when you see monsters. That'll break you out of the sprint so you can engage with no danger. If you do need to run away from monsters, just hold spacebar. You won't be vulnerable during the roll, and you're faster while sprinting than basically any monster in the game, allowing you to retreat from combat. Sprint is a pretty significant change to PoE 2's gameplay. But what I like most about it is that we can accelerate the pace of the game for those who want that, without having to compromise on PoE 2's more visceral combat systems. Okay, so that's the new extensions to the campaign, but there's a whole giant league to play through as well. I'll leave that to Mark to talk about later. And that's because what I want to talk about now is the new stuff for your characters. And probably one of the biggest new systems here is with the support gems. Now, support gems are one of the most interesting elements to creating a build. They're what enables so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play. But PoE 2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design, though, is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build. If you can only use each support gem on one skill, it means that you're encouraged to go all in on that one ability. And we want to encourage you to combo your abilities, something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per character. You can now use as many copies as you like. This should drastically increase the amount of possible builds and increase the amount of skill diversity. There are a lot of potential builds that suffered from the previous restriction. For example, a poison build previously couldn't add poison to more than one skill. They couldn't use stacking poison on more than one skill either. This severely limited your ability to combo with anything outside of the specifically designed poison archetype, but now you can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame, because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use on other skills. You would never speed up killing Palm with martial tempo, when you would much rather use it on your primary skill instead. There are more examples like this all over the place. In addition to that though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression in the supports as you went through the game. There were only 3 tiers of supports, and many of the most important ones were given out at tier 1. Also, there were no strict upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you ran out of sockets required quite a lot of thinking. In order to solve these issues, we now also have multiple levels of many supports as you go through the game. For example, double barrel support gives you an extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed. At tier 2, the penalty gets lowered to 20%. But then at tier 3, the support gem gets something new. It now reloads automatically when you heavy stun an enemy. In some cases, the highest tiers might work a little differently, and you'll have to decide if you like the upgrade or not, depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed. But then at tier 3, it changes to a new approach. For each different spell you cast in the last 8 seconds, you get 10% increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells. So that's pretty good for upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our new system, lineage supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for supports. There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful. Like Ratha's Assault. It's an upgraded version of Double Barrel that reloads your skill as you dodge roll, as well as increasing the number of bolts it can hold. But it does mean that it's the only way you can reload the skill now. Now, unlike regular supports, you can't find these through the uncut support gem. Just like unique items, many of these can be found from specific bosses. And there's a ton in the regular drop pool too. Some of them are fairly rare, others fairly common. Some of them are build defining, others are just straight up power upgrades. All in all, there's around 40 lineage supports being added throughout the endgame, so there's a lot of power to find out there. Now, the new support gems are certainly going to open up a lot of builds, but of course we have a huge range of improvements to individual character classes as well. As well as adding new skills, we had a big focus on buffing existing skills so that they can scale well into the endgame. There's a huge amount to cover here, so we're not going to discuss everything. We're just going to quick fire through some of the coolest changes. We wanted to make cold a more useful element on the Ranger, so we've expanded the cold tools available. As well as increasing its range, Escape Shot now creates fragments of ice whenever it hits the ground. These fragments explode after a short time, making the skill better for killing groups of enemies. But not only that, we added an ice fragment support that creates more of them when killing frozen enemies. and a new buff skill called Ice-Tipped Arrows that allows all your arrows to create ice fragments. This already gives clear to rangers wanting to use ice, but to take further advantage of the ice fragments, Freezing Salvo has been upgraded to shoot additional cold arrows towards every fragment, giving you a nuke-like ability. We've also modified Snipe to consume frozen from enemies, dealing a huge amount more damage, giving you a nice ice single target option. And something you might notice about this is that the bonus is a lot higher against bosses. This is actually a change you'll see throughout the entire game. Since it's a lot harder to freeze a boss, you should get a bigger reward for it. Another theme you'll see throughout the game is making movement feel better. Toxic Growth is a skill that was pretty cool, but a bit annoying to use with the jump that it had. Now Toxic Growth is a range skill, so you can spam it more easily. And we've also added a new poison skill while we were at it, called Toxic Domain. It creates a small area around you that makes all your attacks create toxic growth pustules, but attached to monsters. Another skill that was annoying to use was Electrocuting Arrow. It's now just a regular arrow, making it easier to use. But it also means you can support it with projectile supports. And it now also has Area of Effect, making it a tool for more than just single target, and allowing it to scale into the endgame. We also added a new spirit reservation called Mirage Archer. This is a meta skill that allows you to create shadowy clones of yourself to use a skill of your choice. Of course, one of the other big problems the Ranger had was survivability. Evasion was the weakest of the three defenses, and we wanted to change that. Currently, Evasion doesn't evade all types of hits in the game, so you're still vulnerable to things like slams or unblockable attacks. To make Evasion characters more tanky, we're adding a new mechanic called Deflect. Unlike Evasion, Deflect works on everything, and if you successfully deflect a hit, you take 40% less damage. Items can now give you a mod that gives you some amount of deflection based on your Evasion. And there's a bunch of it available on the passive tree too. Deflection is rolled in addition to Evasion, so this is an upgrade for regular hits too. And unlike Evasion, there's no maximum chance. You can reach 100% deflect against all hits if you spec into it enough. Of course, this is a buff that helps all Dex characters, so the Mercenary and the Monk, but especially the Huntress, are seeing big defense boosts from this as well. Speaking of defensive mechanics, let's talk about block and parry. Now, one of the big concerns on the release of the Huntress was parry feeling unreliable. One of the big reasons for this is there's a lot of hits that are not blockable, and thus not parryable either. So a huge balance change we're making is that now everything is blockable, except for specifically unblockable red flash skills that bosses use. This makes parry much more reliable. And not only that, but to make block and parry nicer to use, you now also move faster than before while using these abilities. This is a massive buff to passive block as well, so to counter that we did have to lower the max passive block a bit, but overall you should feel much safer. Fire skills on the warrior were not really cutting the mustard, so we decided we needed to upgrade a bunch of them, but also add some more as well. Let's start with a buff. Volcanic Fissure now branches into multiple fissures, giving it much more clearing potential. We've also added a new skill called Forge Hammer. This skill throws a molten hammer that does a slam at a distance. You can recall the hammer back by using the skill again if you like, but the cooler thing to do is to use a Warcry near it. Using a Warcry makes the hammer explode, making a bunch of volcanic fissures around. Volcanic fissures re-trigger when you slam them, so it's a great skill to make a flaming arena to fight a boss. We also buffed Perfect Strike to have much larger area of effect, and changed Molten Blast to not always force you to move forward. Trust me, it feels a lot better to use now. The skill now has massively boosted chance to ignite monsters as well. And you're going to want to ignite monsters due to a new glory skill called Ancestral Cry. Ancestral Cry charges up with glory by igniting monsters, invoking King Kaum's favor. After you do, use it to channel Kaum's ancestral power. Every attack will be ancestrally boosted with fire. Your very steps will explode, triggering volcanic fissures, and molten balls will erupt from your attacks. Warrior shield skills were another area we wanted to improve. Now that we've got Sprint, we actually don't need to have a cooldown on shield charge anymore. It now also does more damage the further away you are when you use it. Shield Wall got significantly upgraded AoE. Also, you can shield charge right through it to trigger all the walls. We also added a new shield war cry. Fortifying Cry gives you a defensive buff, but it also builds up charge on your shield that empowers your other shield skills. And Magma Barrier now doesn't require timing in order to use. Just wait for your shield to charge up and block. Seismic Cry now stuns enemies that are primed for stun. And we changed the Sunder interaction with Armor Break. It now also gives a Sundered Armor debuff that makes enemies take 40% extra physical damage. Great for bosses. Ancestral Warrior Totem has undergone some pretty significant changes too. We wanted the skill to feel more like using an ultimate. That summoning an ancestor to fight for you was a big deal. So we've changed this totem to require 3 endurance charges to summon, and massively buffed its damage. It also now scales your weapon damage too. Since there's no limit anymore, if you build around generating endurance charges, you can summon an entire forest of totems. In order to make that easier, we added some new sources of endurance charges. There's now a support to make Perfect Strike generate charges, and a support for generating endurance charges from heavy stuns as well. Speaking of totems, we wanted to upgrade the Warbringer. Among the other changes we've made to this class, Answered Call now gives an extra totem, and the spirits have just been generally buffed in many ways. Use it with your limitless ancestral warrior forest to make an army of Karui that would make Tukohama proud. We've also merged the Great Wolf Howl and Warcaller's Bellow support, so that you can get all the benefits with 1 point. And Encased in Jade no longer removes the Jade when getting hit, making it a much better defense. Next up, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy was always intended to be something that warriors didn't need to care about very much so long as they're in close combat. But unfortunately, that's not currently the case. This was particularly annoying with skills like Bone Shatter, which you certainly don't want to mess with. So we significantly buffed your chance to hit at close ranges when you don't have much accuracy. Warriors shouldn't require any accuracy investment in order to hit with close range attacks now. We also wanted to improve armor. Now, one of the major weaknesses of armor is the inability to defend against elemental damage. In order to mitigate this, we're adding a lot more of the stat that allows your armor to defend against elemental damage. It's now available on items and in a lot more places on the passive tree. One of the most important improvements we've made in 030 is to declunk the action and flow of shooting crossbows. You can now reload crossbows without any movement penalty. But not only that, all skills that can be used while moving now slow you for a shorter amount of time. This change benefits everyone, not just crossbow skills. With both of these changes put together, the run and gun playstyle feels much better. It's hard to explain how important this change is for the feel of the class. The Mercenary is also a good chance to talk about how we're rebalancing to make comboing skills much better. Take Shock for example. It buffs damage and lasts 4 seconds right now, but that isn't really giving you enough time to take advantage of it. If you're going to add a lightning skill into a build that otherwise wouldn't use one, we need to make mechanics like this much better. So we've increased shock duration on monsters to last 8 seconds. And skills like Plasma Blast, which are intended to be good at shocking enemies, now increase the damage bonus by a lot more. You'll find changes like this all around the game. Chill now lasts 8 seconds, giving you more of a reason to weave in cold damage. Freezing skills are better at freezing. Burning skills need to cause burns that last longer. But making skills like Permafrost Bolts and Incendiary Shot double down on how they're supposed to be used, it makes using them in your build alongside other skills much more likely. We're also making sure to buff specific combos too. The freeze explosions from frag rounds now chain to nearby enemies. And using high velocity rounds with armor break will now fragment the opponent's armor. This causes monsters to take a portion of high velocity rounds damage with every subsequent hit, even tiny pellets. So that means following it with a shotgun blast is way more effective. Now there's a lot more buffs to crossbow skills, but for now I'm just going to talk about the new one we added, the Mortar Cannon. This one lets you socket any grenade skill, and using it will summon a cannon which loads and then fires the grenade you choose. Another issue on the Mercenary were banners. They were just not very good, so we're doing a big upgrade to them. They now last longer, don't disappear when moving out of them, and we removed the Valor mechanic. They now just give a much more consistent and stronger buff, and you can use them when you get enough glory. On which, one of the main focuses was making various minion types more useful to use together. Melee minions in particular were just not that great compared to ranged ones. As a starting point, we just straight up removed the requirement for minions to have accuracy. Attack minions now always hit, which makes them way better. Brutes got some good numeric buffs, but we also added a new command skill where they do a war cry that intimidates enemies and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold explosion. We've also changed the Frost Mage's command skill to an ability that adds ice armor to your other minions, adding a layer of defense. And it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker as well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's war cry can detonate them too. Unearth was changed to work on corpses of your dead skeletons, allowing you to summon the minions more easily in boss fights. And they also got a new jump ability, allowing them to get into combat faster. Ray's Spectre was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have. To be honest, we were a little afraid of these when we first balanced them. We've both decreased the spirit cost for a large range of monsters, and we've significantly increased Spectre damage too. They should feel a lot more impactful. There's also a lot of new spellcaster weapons with newer cult skills, but I'll just talk about one of them that I thought was particularly cool. The Reaping Staff is actually a wicked scythe that gives you a new ability called Reap. When an enemy is low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly, healing you. It can also inflict critical weakness on enemies too. Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the Witcher's Ascendancy classes, but I'll just talk about two of them for now. On the Blood Mage, you were previously required to spend your first points on Sanguimancy, which really was supposed to be the downside for being able to access the powerful abilities on the rest of the class. In order to make picking the Blood Mage a better early option, we've made Sanguimancy free, unlocking the power of the rest of the class immediately. On the Infernalist, the Demon form wasn't something people were really using because you lost your weapon stats while transformed. Well, you no longer do, so it's a much better option now. On the Monk, the wind skills needed a big upgrade for sure. Staggering Palm can now stack up its duration if you use the skill multiple times in a row, so you can keep the effect of all your skills throwing up wind much more easily. Wind Blast had the purpose of building up to dazing an enemy, but dazing just wasn't worth all that effort. Now it just dazes on hit, meaning a single Wind Blast will make all your skills stun enemies more easily. Following up with Vaulting Impact on a dazed enemy previously did a bunch of stun. Now it allows you to break your enemy's stance. When their stance is broken, following up with a fast attack will do way more damage. A cool build that certain people always enjoyed in PoE 1 was hand-to-hand combat, but until now we just didn't have a real way to make it viable. Well, that changes now. The Monk, as a true martial artist, now has the ability to learn the Hollow Palm technique, a keystone that lets you use all quarterstaff skills while unarmed. All quarterstaff attacks now have a special unarmed version, and you get further bonuses to all your attacks from stacking Energy Shield and Evasion on your character. A new keystone we also added to the Monk section of the tree is Walker of the Wilds. This changes Mana Leech to work with elemental damage instead of physical, which is pretty useful for all those elemental attacks the Monk has, but it works well for the Ranger too. Now, one of the least used Ascendancy classes in the game is the Acolyte of Chayula, so we knew we needed to make some changes here. One of the key things we had to do was make the chaos damage that the Acolyte can do much more useful. So we've added a new skill, allowing chaos damage to ignite, shock, chill, and freeze, embracing the elemental prowess of the Monk in a truly chaotic fashion. In addition, he can make all of his chaos damage leech. And we've buffed Into the Breach and Embrace the Darkness by moving the effects of the 4-point nodes into the base skills. He also gains a new notable, Grasp of the Void, which leaves void illusions behind you as you dodge roll. If they're killed, they do massive explosions of darkness, dealing damage to everything in sight. Now let's talk about Sorceress skills. One of the things we wanted to improve on the Sorc is the ability to use multiple elements together more effectively. Now, this might seem small, but one of the things pushing you towards using a single element is debuffs like Elemental Curses, which lower resistances of a single element. In order to fix that, we're making quite a lot of game-wide changes to these kinds of mechanics to broaden what they apply to. So for example, there's no longer 3 curses for fire, ice, and lightning. Instead, there's just a single curse that buffs all 3 at the same time. And things like Frostbomb, which gave you cold exposure, now give elemental exposure. You can use it to buff any of your other skills. We also wanted to make switching between different weapon sets smoother, so you can use different elemental staves more effectively. To do that, we've removed the weapon switch time, and now happens instantly. This applies game-wide too. Now we didn't just want to stop there. we wanted to add some specific mechanics that work between different elements, and that's where elemental infusions come in. Certain skills can now drop elemental infusions. For example, when a frost bomb explodes, it leaves behind a cold infusion on the ground. After picking it up, you can spend it on one of any number of different skills to transform how they work. Spark will create a nova of cold-infused projectiles. Ice Nova will leave a chilled area on the ground. And we also added a new low-level skill that fires ice shards. Use it with cold infusion though, and the ice shards will explode. Orb of Storms now generates lightning infusions when you cast enough spells near it. And that's all spells, by the way, not just lightning. Once you have one, you could cast a lightning flame wall, which adds both fire and lightning damage to all the projectiles that pass through it. Or power up Ember Fusillade with lightning, which will generate arcs to nearby enemies as each fireball hits. Or maybe go lightning on lightning with arc. This skill is now a projectile, and by infusing it, you can go full Palpatine. Get fire infusions by blowing up monsters with living bomb. Then use them with Comet to summon a giant fire meteor from the sky. Or use it with Firestorm, which transforms it from a small area into a much bigger one. Firestorm is unique in that it can be infused by multiple different elements at the same time. Add an ice infusion to rain down ice at the same time as the fire. And add lightning to add deadly strikes from the heavens into the mix. Or use it with all three to generate a storm that is truly apocalyptic. Cold Snap has been simply turned into Snap. Previously you could use it to shatter ice, but now it works to detonate all of the different elemental ailments, and makes them leave behind infusions. And just like how you could previously use it on Frostbolt, you can now also use it on Orb of Storms and Solar Orb to detonate those as well, which means you can create many infusions at once. We also have a Spirit Reservation skill, and a support gem to help generate them too. On the passive tree, we've added quite a few new keystones to the Sorceress section. Here are a couple of examples. The Black Flame Covenant keystone converts your fire spells to chaos and causes your ignites to deal chaos damage. Your fire spells and ignites will also turn purple. The Ritual Cadence keystone causes your invocation skills to trigger more times, but makes them trigger periodically over a longer duration instead of one. Great for those auto-bomber builds. Now, in addition to skill changes, we've added a lot more options for the passive tree for each class. Overall, there are more than 100 new notables on the tree, usually around 20 per class, along with smaller clusters as well. Check out the old version, and here's the new version. It's a lot more dense, and there's more interesting nodes than before. Now, we probably can't go through too many of these in the livestream, so I'll just show you one from each class's area of the tree. We tried to be a lot more thematic with the new nodes, so for example, the Molten One's Gift. It lets the benefit of Armor Break apply to your fire damage. Or how about Last Stand, which gives you lots of stats as your situation becomes more and more desperate. A lot of these have themes aligning with Ascendancy classes, like for the Gemling Legionnaire for example. You have crystallized immunities which makes you immune to different status ailments depending on which support gem color you have socketed the most. Another Ascendancy class aligned notable is Sanguimatic Rituals. It allows arcane surges to generate life instead of mana, unlocking that support gem to be used with the Blood Mage Ascendancy. In the Sork area, you'll find these Archon nodes that allow you to convert all of your elemental damage to a specific element. You become a Lightning Archon when you spend enough mana, after which all your skills will be converted to lightning, and you will do extra lightning damage as well. We have ones for cold and fire too, with different triggers. Here's another cool one. Elemental Practitioner gives crit bonuses if you've triggered a skill recently, while also making crits generate more energy for triggers. Or maybe you'd like the Great Boar. It gives you a reason to stack dexterity to make you tougher, giving a bonus to life and stun threshold. Or the Cunning Fox. It straight up gives you 5% quality to all your gems. Now, another major change is attribute requirements. We felt like players probably had a few too many nodes and attributes and not enough in interesting passives, so we lowered attribute requirements by 25% across the board. That means you'll have more points to spend on interesting notables rather than just needing to allocate more strength, dex, and int. Now, there are way more changes than just these. These are just some of the cooler ones we wanted to show off, but I'd say that's just about enough for now. We're not even half done yet. So I think it's time that we talk about the League, the rise of the Abyssal. And to do that, I'd like to hand things over to Mark.
As you just saw, even though there are major changes to the campaign for this update, we want to make sure that every time you come back for an expansion, each area feels different with something extra going on. It is really important to make sure your experience when returning between expansions is fresh and filled with new content, and the way we did this was through leagues. Every expansion we make has a league, which not only has a fresh economy, but also has new content exclusively available in that league. So, let's delve into the details of what Path of Exile 2's first official league is bringing to the table. The Abyssal are a race that have mastery of forbidden magics and necromancy. They were thought to be extinct, but have merely been biding their time underground. You first encounter signs of the Abyssal in Clarefell, where you discover that during the night, weaker members of the Undead Legion have been attacking the encampment. The townsfolk require your help to investigate where the monsters are coming from and put a stop to their attacks.
Out there, ancient creatures, lurking beneath the surface.
As you proceed through Rayclast, you'll find fissures in the earth connected to larger pits. The monsters normally inhabiting the area are being affected by it, harmed by it even, having their souls eaten to strengthen the Abyssal underground. As you defeat the monsters, the fissure closes and Abyssal emerge, angered by you killing their food. Once all those fissures have been sealed, the pit activates, and more Abyssal pour out. This is where the larger and more dangerous monsters reveal themselves, as hordes of Abyssal spew out from the pit to take your soul. If you kill a magic pack, then magic Abyssal arise. If you kill a rare, then a rare monster will emerge from the pit, having absorbed some or all of its modifiers for itself. This means the monsters emerging will generally be more difficult and more rewarding, as each modifier gives better rewards. If you are able to kill them all, the pit will seal shut. As each pit is closed, it reveals a potential reward. Abyssal troves will rise up out of the pits, allowing you to get some epic loot. Areas often contain many pits, with many fissures, and the amount goes up as you progress through the game, getting more intense. It doesn't stop there. When monster mods are absorbed, they have a chance to become infused with the dark necromancy, transforming them into Abyssal modifiers. For example, you defeat this monster with the Mana Siphoner modifier. Their soul is eaten by the pit, and a rare monster emerges. The Mana Siphoner modifier has transformed into Soul Siphoner, and is now amplified in danger and reward. Abyssal pits also interact with other monsters and mechanics. If you defeat a rogue exile that's near one, it'll be revived as a Lichborn that has multiple Abyssal modifiers. Lichborn exiles even have their own unique jewel they can drop, if you are lucky enough to encounter and kill them. If an abyss spawns near a boss, killing it will summon a gigantic Giga Larvae creature. Monsters imprisoned in essences near Abyssal pits are affected by the Abyss too. They will come with an additional new essence item that can be used to craft your items. So, that's your bread and butter of the Abyssal League. Kill surface-dwelling monsters, kill the emerging Abyssal, close the fissures, overcome pit encounters, and reap the rewards. There's a lot more to this league, however. As you complete Abysses, you can find ancient pieces of bone, preserved from the remains of fallen Lichborn. These are one of the many rewards for your mission to seal the pits. You can use this on a rare item to imbue it with Abyssal magic, adding a special hidden modifier to your item. But how do you reveal it? In Act 2 of the campaign, you'll encounter a new area. This area is overrun by the Abyssal and the Lost Men. After clearing through this area, you'll find the Well of Souls, a giant cavity with a massive vortex of souls swirling beneath you. So how do you reveal the mods on your Abyssal-infused items? Obviously, just throw them in, right? Yes, that's exactly what you do. Before throwing it in, you are given the option of how you want to transform it, in the form of a choice of 3 different modifiers. Once you've chosen your desired mod, throw it in, where it will absorb the power of the souls, and the ominous creature will then retrieve it for you. These modifiers can be ones from the core mod pool, all the way through to specialized modifiers that cannot normally appear on items. During the campaign, you can use it as a way to more easily add useful existing mods, but during the endgame, there is a whole set of new and powerful mods you can add to your items. Like this mod for crossbows that allows you to place an additional ballista totem. Or this one that adds spirit to your staff. Or this one that allows you to generate more combo with your quarterstaff skills. And speaking of endgame, you can also use the system to craft waystones. With a preserved vertebrae fused into your waystones, you can get some new modifiers that push difficulty and rewards to new heights. Here are some examples of those mods. You always get a choice of 3, so you can